One of your first employers was Victor Fox.
Yes.
What was he like?
Victor Fox was a very nice guy. He was a guy that created the phrase "King of the Comics." Sometime sometime you'll see the phrase referred to me, and it's wrong. I was the first to use it because I was aping Victor Fox. See? And Victor Fox would walk all day long, back and forth. He was a portly, short, portly man. And he walked back and forth across the office each day saying, "I'm the king of the comics. I'm the king of the comics." And that's all he would say. And he wouldn't talk to the artists. He wouldn't talk to the artists. He wouldn't talk to anybody that came into the office because he was too busy saying, "I'm the king of the comics." And one day they discovered uranium up in Canada. And that seemed to capture the imagination of Victor Fox. And of course he closed down the business and he went to Canada to become an instant millionaire, which I don't know if he did or not.
The king of radiation.
Well,
King of uranium.
I hope he knew how to handle it. So,
Go ahead.
There were jobs on that order, but they weren't lasting jobs. And it was a boon to me when the first comic books came into view. And of course, Famous Funnies was the first. And it made me feel wonderful because, not because Famous Funnies was my type of comic. It suddenly struck me that they might possibly produce comics that would give me 22 pages in which to tell a story. And they did. And of course, these magazines began to come out. And I got jobs with the early companies doing complete stories. And of course, it was wonderful for me. And it still wasn't Captain America time yet, but these companies were attracting artists. And one of the fellows I met at one of these companies turned out to be Joe Simon, and we became partners. And we got an office at Tudor City in New York, and it was a wonderful time. I enjoyed doing the work. I would create the stories, and I would create the characters, and Joe would help out sometime, but Joe was more business-oriented. He'd be up at the Timely office, which later became Marvel, and it was owned by Martin Goodman. A fellow named Martin Goodman was a publisher, and Martin Goodman had two brothers who were Joe's age and Joe's height. Joe was about 6'3", and I was about 5'2". So wisdom dictated that I stayed in the Tudor City office while Joe became friends with author and Abe Goodman. See, they were all the same height, and they had a great time. And so, whatever script we brought them, it would come from the Tudor City office. So I did the stories and I did the illustrations, and sometime they would send us scripts. So they would have writers. We get scripts from DC, and we get scripts from Marvel. But I throw them out the window. I threw them out the window, which is what I once did with a violin that my mother brought me. And it was something I didn't want to do. And I literally threw the violin out the window. I happen to be a guy who does what he wants, lives the way he wants to, and I love people in general, and I see them even the villains in my comics, to me, are people, see. And there is something in their lives that makes them become a problem to others. And that's how I saw everybody. Whatever I put in my comics, I've always had this kernel of truth. And maybe I hopefully feel that that this love for people may have been transmitted to them and help them not help them in any way. I'm not a psychiatrist, but just giving them another friend.
You mentioned Captain America a number of times. How did you and Cap first get together?
Oh, it was easy. The times were they were screamingly patriotic. What else? What kind of strip would you do but Captain America? Superman already was in existence and doing extremely well. To me, the Times was screaming war. See? I mean, to me, the enemy was Hitler. The enemy was growing and growing, and I didn't know where I was going to win, but every day something new would happen, and it was really scary. And this is the kind of event that I felt was ruling our times, and I felt it inside of me, and it had to come out in some way. It was scary. It was scary, but it was also a wonderful scare. It's like waiting for a fight. It was like standing out in the middle of the gutter, waiting for a fight to show up. And of course it was showing up. And it was getting larger and larger. And it was right on our doorstep. I had Nazis calling me at the Timely office. See, I once had 6 Nazis call me up, and they said, well, we're waiting for you downstairs, and we're going to beat the daylights out of you, for writing these stories about Hitler. These were New York Nazis, and they had a camp on Long Island. And so I says, hold on, guys, I'll be right down. And of course I take the elevator down, and but there was nobody there. I looked in the street, and of course they wouldn't be there, and I didn't feel disappointed, and I felt disappointed. It didn't matter to me one way or the other. If they wanted to fight, well, what the heck? I would do it. Leon Klinghoffer, who was recently killed by terrorists, was a personal friend of mine. And I think, I remember when he was on the Achille Lauro, my wife and I read about it in the papers. And I told her that, when they mentioned Klinghoffer, I knew what he was going to do. And it was instinctive with all of us. And it happened that way. And of course, he didn't have a chance. But you can't avoid gut thinking, which is what we lived by in New York City at that time. Klinghoffer and I were raised together on one block. And he owned a dry goods store. He and his brother used to work in their father's dry goods store. And we didn't think anything out. We just reacted. We just did what was right.
And what's right at the moment is to mention this is KPFK, Los Angeles, 90.7 FM. Mike Waddell's Hour 25. Our guest tonight is Jack Kirby. Cap America did, I think, embody a lot of your values in terms of doing what he thinks is right and always following that.
Yes. I don't think Captain America would do anything wrong. And he wouldn't. and even at the cost of his life.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that's a true feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And although it may sound fictional, it's a true feeling in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I got my idea for the Hulk. When I created the Hulk,
Mm-hmm.
my idea for the Hulk didn't come from any fanciful place or anywhere. It came from a mother whose child was crawling out from under the fender of an automobile to the sidewalk. The kid wasn't any more than 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And this panicked the mother when she saw her child under the car. And so the mother she ran to the back of the car, and she lifted up the entire car from the back,
Mm-hmm.
because she had that strength of desperation. And when I saw that, it suddenly dawned on me that there was a character there,
Mm-hmm.
that's inside all of us, that when we become enraged, that we can bend steel. I've done that myself. And so there it was, right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the idea for the Hulk came about.
One more question about Captain America, then we'll move on. What you have?
Yeah, I had a Captain America question.
Yeah, just one last one.
I'm sorry if I
It's all right. It's
deviate.
fine.
If I deviate in any way,
It's
forgive me.
Don't worry about it. I have my own theory about why this is, but now I can ask the source. Finally, why the killing off of Bucky, Captain America's protege?
I don't think I was the one that killed him off.
Oh, you weren't?
No,
Oh, okay.
I never kill off anybody. And I do at times in the strip, but I bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll find out that my characters never die. And it's my own, I believe it's my own view toward humanity itself. We never really die.
Yeah.
You live on in your son, or you live on in somebody else, and I don't know the answer, but somehow I feel that our lives are endless.
The reason I asked was that I'd heard that Bucky was killed off because in the course of the Second World War, so many sons and brothers were lost that even Captain America had to lose someone to make it close off properly.
No,
Yeah.
it was just story.
Just story.
It was good for the story, and it jolted the story.
I'm leaving now.
Sorry.
My illusions